Hello my dear SwitchWatchers, it's Jordan here, how the ruddy hell are you doing? I'm back after a holiday with a review of Game Dev Story for the Switch. If you're new here, then don't forget to click that subscribe button to become part of the SwitchWatch community for the best Switch reviews around. Anyways, let's get on with it. Game Dev Story is pretty much a legendary game in the mobile scene. While it's over 20 years old from its PC release, it actually struck gold with the iOS explosion at the turn of this decade when the likes of Angry Birds came along and showed the public that mobile games had every right to be taken seriously in the industry. Pretty much every young gamer's dream was to be able to make games, right? Or is that just me? Either way, when I first played Game Dev Story, it really struck a chord with me, and that's why I've gone out of my way to pretty much download it on every single phone that I've ever owned. It's a mobile classic that's now out on the Nintendo Switch, and how could I say no? While the title of Game Dev Story may lead you to believe there is a story just waiting to burst out of your Switch, well, you'll be a little bit disappointed if you've got that as an expectation. The word story is often used with quirky little Japanese games, even when there's minimal story on offer, and that's exactly the situation here. You are a start-up video game developer wanting to achieve global success, and that's about it. It's not so important to have a story in such a focused micro-simulation game because that's the style they were going for, and a story would have probably bogged the game down somewhat. I think it would have been interesting to see what a story could have come out about the trials and tribulations of running a game development company, but that's for a different game with a different MO. As you may have gathered, Game Dev Story is a simulation management game. As a startup company, you start by hiring a meager amateur group of staff, taking on odd jobs before delving into producing games of your own. It's really very simple stuff here, and anyone can pick up and play it. Basically, you choose which console you want to develop for, the consoles of which are spoofing real-life ones in release date order. Then there's the genre and the subgenre to pair it with. The genre has more general descriptions such as RPG, racing, simulation, etc., while the subgenre gets into more specific themes like samurai, robots, or even things like chess. There are loads that can be found, and combining them to create winning combinations is always a joy. There is method in the madness for sure. You can instantly tell which games are going to click with an audience, such as an RPG mixed with fantasy, but then there's the weird ones that you would never think it would do well. Some just don't do well at all, like a tabletop baseball game for example, would never relate to the audience. Some of them are more focused towards a Japanese audience, so it may take a while to get around some of the quirks that may present themselves. What's interesting is that genres have different popularity levels as well as different development costs. Do you want to make a cheap mahjong game that makes a small profit, or do you want to sink money into a simulation game and hopefully reap the rewards of its popularity? As someone who's always observing figures and performances of releasing a product of sorts with reviewing for SwitchWatch, Game Dev Story accurately depicts the anxiety-filled nature of a quick-fire release. From the huge excitements to the huge disappointments, seeing games fly off the shelf or bombing to oblivion, it's just how I feel when seeing reviews do well or being ignored. The emotions are a rollercoaster ride, and this is sped up to 11, so it's just a constant rapid-fire play on your feelings as your bank account soars or splutters. There's plenty of little snippets of gaminess outside of the gameplay cycle. For a start, you can both level up and train staff, either through money or research points earned through different sources. Doing so will increase your staff's stats, as well as unlocking more genres. You only begin with a few, and to avoid giving your fans genre fatigue, unlocking more is vital, as is increasing your stats, because the higher the stats your developers are, the better they can develop the games and the better they will be received and get more hype and such. This part, while great, could have had a few more consumer-friendly additions to help out the utter minefield that it can be. It can be really difficult to keep track of what you've already attempted. Did you already send your sound designer to the movies? Did it do anything, or did you send him for a stroll instead? Just a nice little chart showing what you've attempted before would have been nice, and saved a bit of time and wasted money on banging your head against the wall, accidentally doing the same event twice. Then there's the hedging your bets aspect of Game Dev Story. Over the course of the game, a myriad of new consoles will enter the market, each with differing development costs, audience size, and type. Because of the high cost of acquiring a license, you really want to take a plump on one of them. If you go with the flop, you could be in trouble, as well as getting in over your head with development costs, especially when it comes to staff payday as your office ever expands and wages increase with their levels. There's definitely a management aspect here, and it's deeper than you would think. You need to advertise your game, attend trade shows as well as award ceremonies. It blitzes by in the blink of an eye, and it's all wonderfully fantastic. As a 20-year-old game, it holds up remarkably well in my opinion. While now it's on the big boy consoles, it's still very much showing its mobile colours. There are a growing number of in-depth strategy simulation games on the Switch these days, with the likes of City Skylines, Prison Architect, but Game Dev Story is unashamedly quaint. There is depth here, but it doesn't make it so apparent, and yes, it does kind of become a by-the-numbers game once you've cracked the code and played it long enough, but finding that code, finding what works, and enjoying the cute little quirks of this game is what makes it so special. So I've just talked about the gameplay, now I want to know if you are interested in playing this game. In the top right hand corner there is a poll that wants to know if you plan on picking up Game Dev Story. Be sure to join in because we love to know what you think. Visually the game is not remarkable at all, it's very much in line with other cheap quirky games, but it still has that distinctive Kairosoft look that all of their games have. It does its job, although a bit more variety may have been nice as you're often staring at the same screen for a long time, which can become fatiguing. In that sense, it's not actually so great on a big TV and it's far more suited to handheld play where the static environments aren't so stark. There are some presentation quirks that unfortunately give a more amateur feel to it than you would like, words being cut off in the middle with little evidence of formatting for the English language is the most obvious example of this, so a patch to smooth some of these little things out would be great to make it look a little more professional. The audio is the weakest aspect of Game Dev Story for me. I think there are only a scant few songs in the game and you'll be hearing them a lot. It might not be so bad if the songs were great, but they're really not. They come across as though they've been made by a hobbyist on the programming team rather than an actual designated composer. For me, this is the game that I turn the music down and play my own tunes. The value is a bit of a stinger. I paid £8.99 for this on the Switch. Yes, I paid for it myself, which I think is more than twice the price than it is on iOS as far as I can remember. Sure, it's been altered slightly for the Switch version with a wider screen presentation and a slightly different menu format, but it should have been the same price just for equality's sake. I knew that going in, but honestly I knew that Game Dev Story is easily worth the £8.99 I paid for it. It's a weird conundrum to be in. It's easily worth the price, but it should be lower. It's basically a victim of the iOS version being insane value for money. Overall, while it may be on the Switch and be able to be put up on the big TV, Game Dev Story is still a mobile game at heart and an old school one at that. Don't go in expecting big things, otherwise you'll be disappointed. It's a little capsule of joy and should be treated as a micro game with a lot of heart. The Switch may not be the perfect fit for this kind of game, and you may want to plump for the incisive accessibility on your phone, where it's also cheaper. I'm not gonna lie though, it's still as addictive as ever, and you can turn a 5-minute go into 5 hours, and you'll have no idea what just happened to your day. For me, it's an 8 out of 10. I think if the price was reflective of the other releases at half the price, then that score would have been even higher. Okay guys, thank you ever so much for watching this review of Game Dev Story. We'd love to know what you guys think of it. Don't forget to partake in the poll above. If you found this review useful in any way, then click that like button and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. And if you're new here, then don't forget to subscribe. Finally, head over to website switchwatch.co.uk for some reviews that don't make it to video form. I've been Jordan from SwitchWatch, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.